The first human world burned in silence, and the galaxy learned fear without understanding why. I remember the moment clearly, because I was ordered to explain it, to justify the panic spreading through 1,000 star systems. I am Commander Threxel of the Valari Concord, veteran of 6 interstellar wars, and I stood before the Galactic Assembly as the lights dimmed and the recordings began. A blue planet fractured by fire, cities collapsing, signals screaming until they cut to nothing. They expected me to say humans were monsters. They were wrong, but that was only the beginning. I did not begin my testimony with battle reports or casualty numbers. I began with a single human face, Dr. Elias Monroe, pale, exhausted, smiling anyway. He had been my liaison during the Joint Research Initiative on Outpost Helios, a neutral station orbiting a dying star. Humans had begged us to let them help stabilize its core. We laughed. Primitive fusion minds, we thought. But they insisted. They always insist. I should have walked away that day. None of us were prepared for the truth. Humans arrived at Helios carrying nothing but outdated ships and impossible optimism. Their technology lagged behind ours by centuries, yet they studied our systems with unsettling speed. They asked questions no species ever dared about failure points, redundancies, what happens when safeguards break. Not how to prevent catastrophe, how to survive it. That should have frightened me more than it did. Every cycle, Monroe stayed longer than required. He slept beside the reactor, monitoring fluctuations we deemed irrelevant. When I asked why, he said something I later repeated to the assembly word for word. Because something always goes wrong, he told me, and someone has to be there when it does. What I saw next changed everything. The star began to collapse ahead of schedule. Alarms failed. Containment fields destabilized. My people evacuated immediately, protocols flawless and cold. Humans did not. They ran toward the reactor, toward certain death. I ordered Monroe to retreat. He laughed, actually laughed. "Commander," he said, voice shaking, "if we leave now, billions die later." Then the station shook, and Helios became a grave. Humans rerouted power manually, bodies burning under radiation that should have liquefied them instantly. They screamed. They kept working. Monroe sealed the breach from inside the chamber, knowing the door would never open again. As he did, he looked directly into my camera feed. "Tell them," he said. "Tell them we tried." The star stabilized. The humans did not survive. That was when the fear began. At first, the galaxy praised them. Monuments were built. Songs were sung. Then came the data reviews. Human engineers had not followed probability models. They had ignored survival metrics entirely. They acted on something we could not quantify: attachment, defiance, hope. Call it what you will, but hope is dangerous. Because once you witness a species willing to die screaming just to buy strangers a chance, you start asking a terrifying question. What would they do if they chose to fight? But that was only the beginning. Years later, I faced humans again, this time as enemies. A border skirmish on the edges of unclaimed space. We expected surrender. Their fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, obsolete. I prepared mercy protocols. Instead, they advanced, straight at us. No formation logic. No retreat vectors. My tactical officer whispered, "They're insane." He was wrong. Humans transmitted a single message across all channels. It was not a threat. It was a warning. We are still here. Then they detonated their own flagship inside our command formation. Not as a last resort, as an opening move. The explosion crippled 3 capital ships. Debris shredded our lines. Human fighters swarmed to chaos, piloted by individuals who laughed and cried and screamed names over open comms. They flew like they had nothing to lose. Because they didn't. We retreated that day, not because we were defeated, because we were shaken. None of us were prepared for the truth. Humanity does not fear death the way we do. They fear meaninglessness. They fear dying without maturing. And that makes them unpredictable beyond calculation. Where we preserve ourselves, they preserve ideals. Where we choose survival, they choose legacy. That is why they are feared. But the galaxy misunderstood something critical. Around the midpoint of my testimony, murmurs filled the chamber. The delegates leaned forward. They expected condemnation. Instead, I delivered the revelation that changed everything. Humans are not feared because they are violent. They are feared because they are loyal to each other, to strangers, to causes that outlive them. And once you earn that loyalty, they will walk into hell smiling. I told them about the final transmission from Earth. When the great silence swept through human space, an ancient, devouring intelligence that erased civilizations without leaving ruins. We advised evacuation. We offered sanctuaries. The humans refused, not out of pride, out of resolve. Earth broadcast one final message, not to us, but to the thing come and consume them. This is home, the message said, and you will choke on it. What happened next changed everything. Human scientists activated forbidden technology, an untested space-time lattice designed to trap the silence at the cost of their own planet. They knew Earth would be lost. They did it anyway. Billions sacrificed to halt an extinction-level predator that threatened us all. The silence vanished. So did Earth. The galaxy mourned. Quietly, ashamed. I finished my testimony with a warning, my voice echoing through the vast hall. You fear humans because they fight without limits, I said, but you should fear yourselves if you ever make them fight alone. Silence followed. Heavy, honest, because the truth had settled in. Humans were not gone. They had colonies, children, stories, and they remembered who stood with them and who watched from a distance. As I left the chamber, a young delegate asked me a question I will never forget. "Commander," she said, "if humans ever return, what will they be?" I thought of Monroe, of Helios, of Earth burning to save a galaxy that barely noticed. I answered softly, "They will be exactly what they have always been." I said, "The ones who step into the fire first." And that is why even now the galaxy sleeps uneasily, because somewhere among the stars, humanity is still out there, watching, waiting, and choosing what to save next.